You're listening to the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman, episode 316. So, on today's podcast, we're joined by Nick Entwistle, who you might know for 1 minute briefs, which is how I know you. But then I did a load of research today and know you do way more than that. So, can you tell us all about you and what you do?
Yeah, big question, I suppose. I started off when I was at uni. I did graphic design and advertising, so ended up progressing into the industry, actually more into the world of advertising than design. I worked in a creative team, more so as a copywriter. So worked in different agencies like McCann, Driven, uh, and started to then go into freelance agencies around the world, McCann, Barcelona. I did a little bit for and a few agencies, and started to actually move into the world of film. So I was probably a little bit better at writing in school. So that ended up coming through because I wanted to go and do graphic design, and then the sort of writing aspect started to shine back through the design stuff, and I ended up in a bit of writing, script writing, and things like that. Um, Then, I mean, 1 minute briefs also started at university. We got about 7 weeks on our final major project and spent a lot of time procrastinating, and started off what is now called 1 minute briefs, literally giving ourselves a minute. And more often than not, you find that your first instinctive idea is really good. If it's not so good, you've only spent a minute on it, you do another minute, and then 10 ideas in 10 minutes. If there's a group of you doing them, there's loads of stuff on the walls. So it's a great technique and something that I use in my own day-to-day thinking whenever I do stuff as a creative director now.
So, so for anyone that doesn't know about 1 minute briefs, it's it's just kind of, it turns so much on its head, which I love. I think you've got one today around mustard. I was looking at it today. So can you talk to us about what is 1 minute briefs? Imagine the people listening have no idea. What is it?
So at its core, if it's me against you doing a head-to-head 1 minute brief,
I
so
think
it's
you're going to
basically,
win. I'll be honest.
well, and the I suppose that's the good thing about it, is that anyone can come up with an idea, and in a minute, even though it gives you a bit of a restriction, when we do it head to head, when I'm literally doing it with pen and paper, sometimes people, Photoshop them and things, but I always ask people to make sure they're coming up with their ideas quickly. Sometimes you can see when people have overthought an idea and spent a bit longer on it, and it's actually makes the idea less good. So it's all about sort of relying on your creative instincts. So if I give you a minute to come up with something, it might be something ridiculous in your mind. It might be something funny, something from memory or something like that. But it kind of forces you to put pen to paper, even if you do think it's a bit ridiculous at the time. And it also, because of that, it removes the fear of coming up with an idea as well. An example that I was talking about just earlier today, actually, with someone, was someone one day in the room said, meerkat sounds a bit like market. And if you think back to that moment, at that time, it would have been quite a ridiculous thing to say.
Absolutely mad. If someone had just, as you say, if someone just says that, you'd be like, what? Huh?
Yeah. And also, it takes someone on the other end that's hearing that to not instantly say no to it, because there would some people would have gone, don't be an idiot. And then that idea's gone. That 20-year-old campaign never exists because someone didn't believe in it as well. So it's just taking that fear out of almost shouting out loud of an idea, because it's a minute, it can use an excuse to not do such a great one. But more often than not, you actually find it's really good. So it's just a tool that, I mean, I use it whenever I get given a brief, when maybe I'm doing some pitch work with another agency, or I get a film idea or something. I use this technique to just write down as many thoughts as I can very quickly. And then, as a process of elimination, I start to eliminate a few of them and then think, this one's quite good, this one's not bad. might put this with that one, then start to form the ideas that are bigger. Now, sometimes that goes against what some people in the industry think is the way to do it, where they talk about craft and thinking of an idea, whereas we're not trying to change the world of advertising whatsoever, because I know particularly that the craft and thinking about how ideas are going to happen is important. However, this is a great way to spark ideas and if you have an idea that happens in that first minute, you've then got the time to spend on actually making it happen logistically. Mm-hmm. So you might not have to think so much about the idea. But yeah, it's just a technique, and I took it to Twitter one day. We had no followers, didn't know how Twitter worked at the time. It was all quite new, and just started posting some of our own briefs, and you get a like here or there, or I think they were actually called favorites at the time. They weren't even likes. And one day we'd posted enough on there and said, right, 1 minute brief of the day, see if anyone else enters. And we thought, we'll do one every day. No one enters the first day, you're just doing it yourself, kind of thing. And then maybe after a couple of days, someone enters. And what we didn't realize at the time was that because they're entering, they're posting to their own followers as well as to us, and we retweet out back to our followers. It was never intended to become this big thing that it has. But because of that, the way that works and the shareability of it, that's why so many people do get involved and come back each day.
So it's quite a fun thing at its core, but it has got a commercial aspect. I was talking about the mustard one today. So has that company, I mean, I'm sure we can say who it is, it's Coleman's Mustard, isn't it? They've approached you and said, we've got this thing going on. We want some ideas, because there's a monetary prize as well for this one. So how does that whole process work? And then how do people get involved at the other end?
Like I say, because we started this as a community thing, for many years, it was never commercial. First of all, because you're growing your following. Second of all, because it was never intended to be commercial. And I think that's why it grew organically, because people want to get involved. But it was always to create an advert for something every day. I think, yeah. And the very first brief I ever did was with Lucozade. Lucozade got in touch and said, we'd like to sort of sponsor one of your briefs. And I didn't know how much to charge, so it was very, very cheap. But we did that, and then suddenly you've done something for Lucozade, and then you post that out. It's like, all right, Lucozade doing that. Maybe we should do it. So, and because we did one for Lucozade, and because it's sort of socially driven, people then come inbound to us, sort of inbound marketing, because they see what we're doing publicly. I try and share a few things on LinkedIn of what we do with brands and things.
It's actually quite clever as well, because although the objective is to get some really cool ideas for them to then take on, they're actually driving that awareness on a different level as well with the creatives, aren't they?
That's it. It's sort of a win-win for everyone involved, really, which going back to when it was, never, like I said, I also do these every single day. So whether we ever, this might be, I think it's the only booked in one with a brand this week, but we're going to do it every day. My mum describes it as like a Wordle for creatives.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, and people love to come back to each day, because it's got a sense of community. Lots of people work from home these days, and some creatives, not all creatives can work on a brand like Coleman's Mustard, which is, if you're thinking of billboard ideas for someone like that, or a big brand, or, for example, the reason why we've done this one, we've done one with Marmite before, who are in the same bracket of brands as Coleman's. And again, you'd love to work on a brand like Marmite, and sometimes as creatives, we don't necessarily get to be as creative as we would like to be. So there are people working in the industry. Some people that don't even work in the industry are getting involved each day as well. So it's great for people to come back and feel a sense of belonging, being able to be completely creative. And for the brands, not only are you running a competition, so the quality is going to be high, you've also got a good quantity of submissions, which has the potential reach or potential impressions every day guaranteed in the millions. So from hundreds of submissions, that brand is getting out there and being seen to engage with a creator community is always good as well. It also gives them a look almost like a focus group of what the general public, because even though we're all creatives, we're also potential mustard buyers.
Yeah, completely.
So it's nice to see how your brand is perceived, how the brief is perceived. People get prizes from it, so we're giving away holidays, cash prizes, laser eye surgery. There's been all sorts of
Oh my
prizes.
gosh, that's a prize.
Yeah, I mean that was worth thousands to someone, and they were able to, and the winner gave it to their wife, who needed it really, and that was a nice story in itself. It's just steadily grown and grown as a community, and we're able to give opportunities to people. We've got partnerships with out of home companies now, where people can get their work seen. It's not always the best creatives and creative directors in the London big agencies. It allows everyone on a level playing field to get involved and do potential work that might get put on a billboard next week. So it's nice for everyone involved, and obviously I have the community to thank for supporting me and coming back each day to be able to make these opportunities happen for them, but also the opportunities happen for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, from those ideas that have been generated, then have many gone on, the ones that you've worked with brands, have they gone on to be big billboard campaigns, or have some of them and some of them not? What kind of cool things have happened as a result of what you're doing with Twitter X?
Yeah, I mean, there's one that's going on at the moment for TaskRabbit, which was, well, we did one that was going on out of home media spaces in London. And it's now all over the underground and surrounding areas on big billboards as well. That was based around song lyrics that were sort of relevant to the people that do the tasks on the website, the services. We then had the opportunity to expand that into Manchester, so we wanted to do another brief with them to create lyrics based around Manchester bands and things. And of course, Oasis reformed in exactly the same time as we put a few of these out.
Oh,
So we've got a massive billboard right next to Manchester United's ground, and that's the second biggest in the UK. And we had one up there. We had the buses going past with all these adverts on. Then Oasis reformed, and the lyrics looked like we'd reacted to the Oasis news like that second.
that's impressive.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a happy accident in a way, but we're now about to do some more Oasis style lyric based things to go out around Manchester as well to sort of refresh the campaign. And then they're getting noticed. We also did one that was outside Wembley for the Taylor Swift concert. So it was the lyric was you are never ever 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 putting that together, and it was just shelf making, all that type of stuff.
Love it.
So that was a nice campaign. WWF stuff that we've done has had over 1 billion impressions overall. We're now in our 4th year of doing the World Without Nature campaign. And the NHS campaign was probably the biggest one we ever did, which is a few years ago now. And I got asked. That was when I sort of started to move into the film industry. And in that year, I actually had a heart attack myself. I was only 26 at the time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And when I finally sort of maybe recovered and got a bit of confidence to get back in the industry, I got asked to do a bit of freelance work and asked to be a creative lead or creative director at an agency, which I was in fact, I kind of almost changed my mindset from a creative to creative director at that point, even though I was relatively young to be able to do so. So, but because of what had happened, my mindset changed a little bit. So we got asked to do a video for the NHS. I said, let's get 1 minute briefs involved, see if we can make this a bit bigger as a campaign to say thank you to the NHS. Then the NHS choir got in touch with us and said, could this concept be our music video? And then I start saying to my mates, I'm going to get them to Christmas number one, and no one believes me. But I put myself under probably a lot of stress that year, considering what had happened, and maybe I shouldn't have done. But we ended up beating Justin Bieber to Christmas number one with the music video that I directed. So
That's quite a thing. I mean, beating Justin Bieber at anything is quite a thing, let alone Christmas number one. That is like the spot, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And seeing us go ahead of him in the live charts at the time, even he himself started to support the campaign and say would love it if the NHS did it, and it was just really surreal.
Wow.
And ended up seeing the music. I've got the official charts trophy over there. Don't know. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all in for the trophies and the medals and all of the things. I can have it as reflected glory. Oh, wow. That is
So
so cool.
sort of the NHS choir got the big one, and then you've got the sort of mini contribute.
Oh,
The only other time they've ever done these was, I think it was called the midwives choir, where they gave sort of major contributors to the campaign these trophies. So it's quite nice to. It's probably one of my most proud possessions, really.
yeah. God, I can imagine. But would you say that on the whole kind of 1 minute briefs journey, this was one of your highs? I mean, from what you've said, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I remember thinking at the time, like, how can you possibly go any higher than this? The most famous man in the world is showing his own support. We're all over the news and on TV, and the music videos played before the Queen's speech or after the Queen's speech. I can't remember which one. And you do think, wow, this community has really rallied behind this and achieved something really special against all the odds. But it was particularly important to me personally due to what had happened, and basically had my life saved by the NHS as well. So it was personally very important. There have been big campaigns since, but I think this was a turning point in terms of showing. I mean, what happened to me personally showed me, wow, life's quite short, and it gave me a bit of a new belief in myself. But then taking asking the community to get behind this campaign that I was looking to do, and then seeing the power that the community could achieve. We started to get celebrities involved and all sorts. And it was definitely it was a turning point for both, really. But I
Mm.
suppose then with that comes a belief that you can achieve bigger things, and you might start to ask the brands or ask people to collaborate with you to make these big things happen, because now that something like this can be, it's possible. And something that someone tweeted me once, I wish I could remember who it was because I use it in anything I do. and at the end of any talks I do, or my own philosophy thinking whenever I got a briefing, is the quote, "What's the best that could happen?" So with this, I instantly thought, we've got an opportunity to do a music video for the NHS choir. I'm not happy with being 35th in the chart.
No.
Even though that would be nice. I want to get that to number one. And if it falls short, then fair enough. But why not aim for the absolute best in anything you do? And then if you come wherever you do, it's the same with any campaign.
Mm.
The world without nature stuff.
Yep.
Had the idea of football teams doing it and the best possible scenario, and then work backwards from that, instead of thinking, oh, I'll get a few minimal people doing it.
Who can I possibly get? You go for, well, who do I really, really, really want? Or what do I really, really, really want?
Yeah, exactly. And if you can aim high and start to have conversations in those worlds, that's where you can make, big things happen. And also what I've noticed on some of the campaigns that I've done, especially like this, is just making a video, thinking, what else can we do with that? Can we progress that? Can we then do another campaign? So it's not necessarily having a full-on strategy. Sometimes it's being adaptable to what you've just done. Oh, we've got some press wanting some stuff, and then maybe we ask them to post something about it, or can we ask celebrities to say? So we did another campaign saying "I do hope." So it was about wedding vows, for better, for worse, for rich, for poorer. So we asked people to say, "Do you support the NHS?" Say, "I do." We start tagging celebrities in. It's finding a way of getting to that next stage, because you can't get that. You can't just start at that point. You have to start with something, then progress that and escalate it further and further.
I do think there's a huge piece here around mindset. I've got a book that's coming out in January, which I'm really excited about, and I've got some incredible people that I've interviewed for that book. I put down a list of who I really, really, really wanted. And much to my utter and still amazement, a lot of them said yes. Now, half of my brain's going, what are you doing? What? You're just going to look like a fool. And then my other half went, who cares? It'll be all right. We'll either win or we'll learn.
Yeah.
And I'm so, so grateful that little bit of me went, we should try. That little kind of voice in your head that goes, yeah, let's do it. But so many times like, we put the barriers in our way of just trying, not even doing, but actually just asking the question.
Yeah, but it's just like, if you don't ask, you don't get. If you think there's absolutely no chance I can do that, you don't even make the first little step.
No.
So I think that's what's going back to the 1 minute brief stuff. People spend just 1 minute each and potentially can do something big with that 1 minute idea. Or collectively, just by them spending a minute within the community, even if it's just one of the hundreds of ideas in a day, that idea is as valuable as the winning idea.
Yeah.
Because everyone's making one small little effort. But yeah, just by asking the question, or collaborating with that brand, or asking someone for a contact from someone else, it's just building up that experience as you're going along in the industry to start to know and learn. And it's all about collaboration, like you say, when you're asking people there who will speak to me about this. People will find time if you're doing something. It's nice for them to be involved in the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, completely.
and vice versa. That they'll get something nice from it, and you will. But you wouldn't be able to do that on your own because you can't ask people to. You can't pretend that they've said these things or
No,
what. So it's like when you collaborate with other people, you can make massive, great things happen, and then they can feel part of it as well. And in time as well, they might give you a similar thing, a collaboration or something like that in the future, or other people will see it. Then it might help you. It might help them for being part of it. So I think the idea of collaboration and communities is huge as well.
definitely. Now, one of the really cool things about 1 minute briefs, I mean, the clues in the name of it, is the speed of it and that idea generation speed. And as you said before, that's not necessarily the way that anybody goes about or anyone has gone about the creative process. You sort of agonize, you procrastinate, sometimes you can just be looking at a blank sheet of paper for God knows how long because you've got a thought or an idea, but you can't work it through. I mean, what other things do you apply this sort of speed-based concept to?
In terms of advertising, or
Advertising, marketing,
I just I apply it to all the. So sometimes I work with different agencies to work within their pitches or on video campaigns or billboard campaigns. So I use this as a tool to write ideas down. So I will tend to write. I usually start off in notes on my laptop or my phone, and I might even just go and have a walk. Or, in fact, I've done some lately where I've spoken them into my watch. I didn't have. I needed to be somewhere on a big long drive, and this agency needed me to do some ideas for them on that day. And I thought, oh, I can't. I thought, wait a minute, I'm literally driving for a few hours. Why can't I work at the same time?
mm,
So I did my day's work whilst I was driving, and so I'm just talking into my phone with the ideas, and it was actually quite nice because all I was doing, there was nothingness, and all I could do was think of ideas. I thought loads of great stuff, and when I got home or to my laptop, I took them off my watch and then sort of wrote them out in a bit more detail. Again, using that process of elimination to take out some of the rubbish that I'd had in my head and start elaborating on some of the good thoughts that I'd had. But again, same 1 minute style thinking.
I think
Whatever.
that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes people think a quick must be like you don't care about the quality, quick. And there's like a brilliant graph, like you can have it quick or good or no, what is it?
Oh
Quick,
yeah,
good,
yeah, that's right.
that's it. But actually, what you're not saying that because this is the start of the process. This is where the speed is good, and then you weed out the rubbish before you move on to the different stages. Do you think sometimes people like agonize too long on the wrong parts of the process?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like you say, it's very much at the start. It might just be like two or three words or a pun, or sometimes people frown upon puns, but if you actually think about it,
Love a pun.
exactly, people love it. So it will just make someone smile. Let's say it's on a billboard or something. If it makes someone laugh, they'll remember it and that type of thing. It might be a lot of the time I do think in words. So I might come up with a line, uh, some sort of a campaign line idea, but that might not necessarily be the idea itself. So if I'm doing PR ideas or a video idea, if it's just three words on a page, I don't necessarily know what that film will be yet. But when I revisit it, I will start to think, right, well, I've got the campaign idea here. The video could be vox pops, or I could get some celebrity people in here, or a sports thing, or a parody or something like that. So the idea isn't always, it's not fully forming an idea in a minute either. It's
Mhm.
it's just coming up with something that you can start to think a bit more about, further down the line, or when you begin to start to weed out some of the better thoughts.
Mm.
And then obviously you'll share it with someone else, and then they'll start to read it out even more and say, we like these three. It might be that you preferred one of the other ones, but when the client sees them, they think this, and this is the one that I want, sort of thing.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, obviously the concept, people love it as well, and you've kind of taught a lot of people a new way of thinking. I mean, your community now, I'm sure I was reading, is it like 117,000 across different platforms?
It's something like that. Yeah, I think LinkedIn is, strangely enough, even though we don't, that's probably the one where we don't do as much. It's got a huge amount of followers, probably about 70,000 or something. 40,000 odd on Twitter, but that's where we find our highest engagement because of the way it's shareable and works very well. Instagram's got maybe 15,000 or something like that, and Facebook probably a similar amount. So yeah, something like that across all the various channels. And I've also got about 8 Instagrams because I do a lot of personal projects and art projects and things as well. So there's a lot there's a lot going on.
A huge community.
Yeah.
What are there kind of any tips or any insight you can give in terms of community growth, nurturing a community? Because I think some people get it really wrong when they think the community is about them, and it's really not. I think that's one of the real things when people go, "Oh, I'm building a community about essentially me," and you're like, "No, you're not. You've got to build it about something bigger than you. Otherwise, it's just you."
Yeah.
And okay, I mean, Justin Bieber might get away with that, but most of us mere mortals, not so much. So what's your kind of tips or insight on community growth on the different platforms as well?
I think probably starting small and maybe doing it for yourself initially. Not doing it about you, but doing it for yourself. Even when I've done, so when I've just mentioned my art projects and a book, I'm always writing in my book. I've got about hundreds, maybe 200 actually, of these that I've been doing for years. I don't get many likes or anything, but I do have an Instagram for it, and I do it for myself. And over time, these communities and like-minded sort of journal people, they sort of buy into it and see what you're writing about and things. So I started off doing that for myself. Same with 1 minute briefs, where it's just about putting your ideas out there, doing something a little bit different. And I suppose it was the day that we said, right, 1 minute brief of the day, create a community. When I mentioned Wordle, it's exactly the same thing because you all come back to it and you also want to share your score
Yeah.
and with each other, and then it starts to go more viral. And it's just a shared experience, I suppose, rather than, it's not about any single one of us as a community. It's about everyone having the equal opportunity to participate in something.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that people can get rewards for doing stuff. So when it's so nice when people tweet or DM saying, you've made my day. I can afford to go and do this with my kids this weekend because I've got a bit more money, and um or we give away a holiday and someone shares a picture, they're on holiday because we've given it away to them, but they made that little effort in their day and they deserve it. So it's just, I suppose it's not trying to think, obviously when I say about what's the best that could happen, I never actually thought about that when creating 1 minute briefs. I never thought about creating this massive community. And I think if I had, don't think it would have ever got there. So I think just starting off something that people can feel that they relate to, and then learning along the way, oh, people are liking this. Let's create a 1 minute brief of the day, allow other people to do it, maybe do a commercial thing. Can we give people prizes for this?
Yeah.
I started to do real in-person events.
In
Uh,
real life, that's where you're
in
going.
real life. And I had no money, but I gave people yellow stopwatches to pretend they were gold medals.
Oh, wow.
It's the prizes. So I bought some cheap yellow stopwatches and said, right, you're one of the winners of the year, because, part of the community, always replying to people. Also, it's all about fostering the sense of supportiveness and positivity on there, because it can very, as we all know, Twitter and places like that can be very horrible places at times. So it's about creating it, making sure it's very positive, and if someone says anything untoward, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable within our community, and we just try and keep it as a place of niceness, positivity. People have a bit of fun every day, and also big each other up. And I'm aware that people message me all the time saying I'm struggling with this, or my mental health's not great at the moment. But everyone has each other's backs within the community, so there's always someone they can talk to, or um, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of 1 Minute Briefs, where people do message and say, uh, this has happened to me in my life, or they've had bad family news. I've had bad family news in the last year, with my little brother, who he passed away.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
So yeah, so even that, I'm trying to carry on this community with such horrendous news and just keep going. Um, People have been messaging me saying they're in hospital and things like that. So it goes above and beyond. I mean, I obviously was in hospital a few years ago as well, and it went above and beyond. I saw at that point that it goes beyond the ideas, beyond the adverts and the prizes and whatever, and it's about people sort of wanting to help each other and being there for each other, and that's the most important thing of all, I think.
Do you feel that's quite a lot of pressure when people reach out to you and share things? Like, obviously, it's lovely and it's a real privilege that people do share things. But do you feel a pressure or even a responsibility to look after those people because they're part of your community?
Yes, I mean, it's a really good question. I mean, the amount of pressure I've been under for many years. I mean, at the point of my heart thing, I probably had to take a bit of a reality check, because at the time I was freelancing in Birmingham, I was trying to fill a nightclub for an event in Birmingham. I was driving back to Manchester that night to do a six-a-side 1 Minute Briefs football team in a tournament. I was running 1 Minute Briefs as well. I was doing absolutely everything and putting myself under extreme stress. So I probably had to, even though at that time 1 Minute Briefs did grow a bit bigger, I did need to take steps to not try and do everything for everyone, and realize that I'm a human being as well. That being said, the pressure continues. There is a pressure. I have to be up every single day, regardless of what's going on. If I've not posted a brief by 10 a.m., people are asking, "Where's the brief?" um,
Which is lovely, but it does also put that layer of, particularly if you've got things that obviously have had very challenging things happen, where you just want to think, you know what, I just want to sit quietly or do a thing that doesn't involve me having to speak to people or deal with people.
yeah, I mean, I do. In the last couple of years, we've had help with the social management of the feed, which definitely takes some sort of pressure off, but you still have to be, present to be able to make sure things are okay, because it's a public social media platform, so you have to be on hand and ready at all times, and the pressure can be a lot. Um, you know, it's I suppose it's a lifestyle. You for me, 1 minute briefs for all these years has just been literally my life. So I've lived through it. I've not really had any separation from what it is, and it was always known as me sort of running it. So people would sort of know me on that personal level, and I lived through OMB on that personal level as well.
Mm.
And yeah, so I think, like you say, about responsibility, and when people tell me they've got this has happened to them or this has happened, and I'm like, I just try and do my best to be there for them, and make sure the community is there for them as well. And people are there for me. People do sometimes send me messages and saying, hope everything's okay, and they'll find out some of the news about me or my family, and I have received some messages as well, but I almost have to be there for them first and foremost. And it is a bit of a sacrifice in terms of my own well-being at times, because it can be overwhelming, and sometimes you've got to, right, I've got to get up and do this week. I can't just have a week off or anything like that. Even though I'm going away tomorrow, I mentioned, I'll be on hand to make sure everything's running smoothly and things. You don't really get too much of a break.
No.
But it's a sacrifice that you have to make to be able to achieve these great things, and that's sometimes just the way it is. If I didn't work so hard or didn't keep running this thing, then I wouldn't be able to do this. And also the community give you so much back through their involvement that I want to make sure they're all okay as well.
Mm. Yeah, it's clearly a lot. I mean, if you kind of had this time again and someone said to you when you started it, this is going to be flipping huge, would you have done anything differently?
I think if I did things differently, it wouldn't have been as big as it's become,
Yeah.
because there was always a person behind it. There was personality, and I don't ever want to lose that too much, even if I try and step back a little bit from it. I think taking the risks to do certain briefs and collaborations and things at the time, I mean, there's a pressure on that in itself, because you don't know what people are going to post at any one time, and there's almost a constant. I don't really like the use of the overuse lately. I think of the idea of anxiety, but I probably have that so badly that you wouldn't believe.
Because you don't know what's coming, I guess. It's completely out of your hands, isn't it?
Yeah, and as creatives, we have that whenever we put a piece of work out there, and there's always going to be negativity as well. So there's always people that don't like the approach, or don't like this campaign or that. And as creatives, our campaigns that go out tend to be, like once every couple of months or something, when you put something out big or whatever. I put something out every single day that's different. So there's constant, relentless pressure on that.
Mm.
But yeah, so there's the unknown. Like, is something happening right now on Twitter that I don't know about as we're speaking? You just don't know. So, and then when someone, if someone says, or let's say I'd say, can you take that entry down, please? It's a bit much.
Like
Let's say,
offensive in some way, or
yeah. Typically, the feed is not like that at all. But someone might go a bit far or something. So I'll just politely say, would you mind taking that down? And they'll sometimes people go, that's a joke, or something like that. And I'm thinking, look, there's reasons why I need to do this, because
yeah,
People will attack the feed if they see that piece of content. I'm looking after the best interests of the community. And also sometimes it's not necessarily my own thought, it's just looking after the community as a whole. But you have to then deal with that, and you have to deal with people pushing back on what you're saying and whatever, just as the sort of leader of this community. You don't necessarily want to do these things. But you get kind of put into this position where I think you mentioned it, the responsibility of people's egos. You know, sometimes you hurt people's feelings as creatives, and someone might feel like they've done a great idea, but it's not one or something like that. And it's just having these conversations and knowing where to put your foot down and where to sort of look after people and that type of thing. Like I say, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in terms of those conversations, which people don't really realize or appreciate. And I think I've never really spoken much about it, to be honest, but it can take a lot out of you, actually, because I might just be sat there on the sofa. I'm not doing this in some big office or anything. Sometimes I might be like, oh God, there's something else now.
But I think that's, you see it quite a lot with small businesses as well. Someone like kicks off and goes, I contacted your returns department yesterday. I mean, and to be clear, we're talking about on a Sunday here. And the returns department is the same person that does the social media, does the picking, does the packing, does this. And it's a Sunday and they're sat at home trying to deal with their lives and children. And they've got someone kicking off at them thinking they're this big company and it's just them managing it. I think that often, because people put up such a good because when people are good on social media, people assume that therefore they're a big company, they're very switched on. I think sometimes people put two and two together and make it into a different number. And like with your situation, it's you. So you do a lot of stuff in that time and you do obviously have some help, you said, but it's still you, that it's your baby, the buck stops with you, you feel a responsibility. There's an awful lot on one person.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you're a human being at the end of the day. And if you see something, even when aside from 1 Minute Briefs, I do, films and things, and when that gets posted out, if it's a success, it will get. On Unilad, I did another campaign. It got 10 million views, so it was very viral, and it earned a lot of money for this charity. But strangely, success makes your life a lot more difficult because your work's being seen by so many people that people start saying, oh, they'll start saying something negative, and you'll look through all these thousands of comments for something horrible.
That's the thing with going viral, isn't it? A lot
Yeah,
of people, their whole dream is to go viral, but the problem is when stuff does go viral, it gets in front of people who aren't necessarily your target audience, don't kind of understand the rules of play that you're working with.
yeah, and it's almost not a nice feeling. And the problem with 1 Minute Briefs is that it goes viral almost every day to a certain extent because it has such huge reach.
Hmm.
So to contend with that is difficult, personally. But when you say about, there are a couple of instances where certain people's adverts go viral in their own right, like the 1 Minute Briefs entries, and they message me saying, I'm really overwhelmed by this. Someone might say something like, oh, I've seen a similar idea before, or I've you should do it like this, or whatever. And then people start having conversations, particularly over LinkedIn. It's quite a sinister.
Oh, LinkedIn is, that's interesting.
Yeah, just where people, where a certain ad goes viral and people have the comments on it, or people want to say it shouldn't have the headline, it should have this, and then, oh, this is just another. When it goes that viral, you'll get comments and things, and it's like I might reply and say, it's not my posters as such, but say, look, if it wasn't exactly what it is as it is, it wouldn't have tens of thousands of likes. You
No.
don't need to change it. That's why it is that good. But you just get negativity or people trying to change it or whatever. As soon as you put your work out there, you're at the liberty of people's negativity as well as positivity.
And just
Um,
opinions. I've got an amazing client who's an illustrator, and I think every time she puts out a new piece of work, they say, "Oh, I love it. Rather it was this color," or "I love it, but I'd rather it was this thing, but with that background." And the poor girl poor lady has spent so long working on these concepts, trying them, testing them, redrawing them, and then someone goes, "Oh, wish it was blue."
yeah, yeah, exactly. Straight away, there'll be someone else's thought on it. Again, going back to that idea of the meerkat, when someone said that, someone very quickly could have said, "Stop being an idiot.
Yeah, yeah.
Go-
Get in your box, go and make the coffee.
yeah, go and make a coffee or something because you're just being an idiot." Uh, so there are those things, and then when you're putting yourself out there in terms of a big idea, or trying to do something different, you always, you bring attention to what you're doing, particularly on social media, um, and you just have to try and deal with it. I think, and I did a whole talk on resilience and the fact that when I've talked about success, I've even talked about this with my mum and even when celebrities get so successful or sports stars or everyone is any anything that you do is hyper looked at or
Yeah,
whatever you would call
scrutinized.
it. Scrutinized, yeah, that's the word. And then so if something if I post a brief that's not quite right, if someone posts something here or someone doesn't like what you're posting out or any single thing that you do or tweet or whatever can be latched onto, and it's quite scary in this world at the moment, in terms of what people can sort of pounce upon people for, because nuance and context of certain things can be completely lost within just a few words, as we
Mhm.
see when we text people and someone thinks, oh, they mean this, but they didn't. um there's a bit of that, and it's just, I think social media has started to eat itself a little bit in that sort of way, because it was a much nicer place a few years ago, and now people are ready to just be angry all the time.
That I think that's very fair. I mean, how do you, before I let you go off and live your life? 'Cause I know you've been incredibly busy, but how do you manage that? How do you build up resilience? Because a lot of people get worried about the negativity they might receive. Um, and often like these are people that they've never done anything that could even possibly cause a negative reaction, but because someone they know or something they've seen, they think I don't want that happening to me, so I won't post, I won't share. But particularly if we think about it from like a business perspective, that's incredibly damaging. Social media is incredible. It's our shop window. We need to be using it well. But when we get this fear, we don't post. So what do you do to get over that fear and just do it anyway?
I think the thing about OMB in particular is that it's a daily thing, so we just do it every day, regardless. Something new every day, a bit of fun one day, charity the next, brand the next. So it gives you a structure to go off. So we have
Mhm.
to be present. obviously people are posting their own interpretations to that, so it's on them a little bit if they want to. It's in my interest to protect the feed and keep an eye on these things, but at the same time, it's also in the interest of people's own personal perceptions on what they want to post themselves. So they have to look after their own interests as well as the community. I think you have to realize that you are going to bring negativity or a difference of opinion on your work. So if one person likes it and someone doesn't, I remember doing a talk years ago. I said, "Love your haters," because if you didn't have those, you also wouldn't have people that love what you do, and you'd be
The strength of the feeling.
yeah, you'd be somewhere in the middle where people sort of half like you, half don't, or your work is the same. Yeah, it's all right. It's wallpaper. It's not gonna get 10 million views. It'll maybe get 50 likes or something and not raise any money for a charity. Or you can do something that's really out there, get loved by 10 million people and hated by a few people. It's got an actual feeling and then makes something happen. It's the same if we don't post something. We're just sort of sat there, there's no engagement. If you post something, people love it. People think, oh, that's a load of rubbish, or I've changed this, or whatever. Sometimes when people are commenting saying, I would change this, I would do this, they're actually helping the algorithm because they are commenting and they are having an opinion. So, and then there will be other people self-policing it and saying, what a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
This could stay the same as it is. So, so in some ways, people having an opinion, whether positive or negative, is a good thing. Sometimes we hate adverts that are annoying on TV, and other people think, "Oh, I love this advert." But the next advert that is for dishwasher tablets, and you don't remember whatsoever.
Yeah.
You can't recall the brand. So
Yes,
again, going
really
back
good
to that
point.
meerkat, it's again going back to that meerkat thing. I bet that annoys so many people, like this annoying, funny voiced meerkat. However, we all know it, and we probably all go to. Well, a lot of us will go to for our insurance on compare the make
I
compare them.
do. I go to compare the market because it's the first one that comes to my head because I see this little meerkat in a velvet smoking jacket.
That's it, and that's purely because someone was brave enough and had no fear to say it in that room on that day, and both of us here use compare the market because of that.
Yeah, we really do.
And it's true, and that just shows the power of the lack of fear of coming up with something potentially silly, and it would have been a quick thought. You can't say that was thought of in hours. It was just that the word market sounds a bit like meerkat, and it was just a ridiculous thought.
You'd have talked yourself out of that if you'd have dwelled on it too long.
Yeah, or the barriers that people put up and think, can't say this, I'll just look like an idiot in this meeting.
Yeah,
Or I'd like to know what that actual meeting went like. Actually, I'll maybe at some point I'll try and find out who had the.
that would be awesome just to find out how that went and how that went.
Yeah, like was it an informal thing? Was it presented as a whole deck or something like that? Was it a sort of brainstorm, that type of thing? But it goes right back to that idea of putting yourself out there. Some people will hate that advert, and they'll still compare the market.
Because it's in their head.
Yeah, they'll think it's a load of rubbish, but they'll still use it. People love it, and then so the people that do, who else? Confused, I think, do these things. Confused.com ironically, I find quite confusing because I don't know what they actually ever do.
Go Compare had the opera singer with the curly
Go
moustache.
Compare as well, I suppose. But yeah, they were trying to. They were probably the second best, and then there'll be a few that do a bit of nothing, whereas these have got a meerkat and an opera singer. So the opera singer as well, very annoying,
Yeah,
but sticks in your head. So whether you love it or hate it, you take notice of it, and then it's when you're in the middle where you've got a problem. So I think
yeah,
when we go back to that sort of pressure, and um, you can only make things happen when you're prepared. Even when I'm doing work as a creative director or a director, I'll be on a shoot or something, and people are like Paneki's a bit, he's really in the zone and knows what he needs here and here and whatever. I'm like, I'm just here to do the very best job for your company. It's got to be right, sort of thing. And it's not about being there to do something sort of nicey nice that no one really cares about. It's about doing something that can really make a difference to either people's lives or the message that you're putting out there.
completely. I couldn't agree more. Nick, it's been amazing to talk to you. Can you tell us all the places where people can find you online?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot on of Instagrams and things, but I think if you were to go to bankofcreativity.co.uk, you'll find any stuff that you want to contact me on there. At 1 Minute Briefs on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, all the same 1 Minute Briefs, as in the words 1 Minute Briefs. So you'll find us on there, and I'm sure on the website you'll find any of the other Instagrams and stuff that I do as well.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much for joining me today. I've really loved our chat. It's been really, really interesting.
So thanks very much for having me.